The Avengers Doomsday trailer is out. It's likely to be one of the biggest movies of 2026 and create a whole lot of excitement for the character. I was gonna wait to watch it and then go through the top 10 Doctor Doom comic keys with you, but I've got way too much to talk about with those books and it takes me forever to edit these videos down, so I'm just gonna get this one done and then watch the trailer in a separate video. As I record this, we are still 2 days out from the trailer's release, so I have no idea what's in it. Now, 3 ground rules with my top 10 lists. The first thing is I usually don't stop at 10, and you're just gonna have to deal with that. Second, I am ranking these books by market cap, which means I'm adding up the total market value for every graded copy of each book at every grade. That gives us a way to compare less expensive, high population books side by side with rarer, more expensive books, and get an apples to apples sense of overall demand. Ground rule number 3, we're gonna start with the number 1 book and then work our way down. Why? Because you already know the number 1 book, but you have absolutely no idea what the number 10 book is. Doom is the top Marvel villain, so he's shown up all over the place over the decades. It's those deeper cuts that I want to work my way down to. Also, I'm just going to say this up front. Should you be investing in these books right now? Probably not. The general rule is buy on the announcement and sell on the trailer. The announcement that Robert Downey Jr. would be playing Doom was on July 27th, 2024, about a year and a half ago. So if you haven't bought by now, you kinda missed your chance. But not really, because as it turns out, Doom prices have generally only gone down in that time as a result of the overall comic market malaise. Still, the hype on these books is probably as high right now as it'll ever be. And the only faint hope for investment prospects is that the MCU's Doctor Doom ends up being not just good, but so transcendentally great that he permeates into our culture on the level of Thanos. If you think that's going to happen, you might want to consider buying in. But if you think Avengers Doomsday will go the way of most of the last dozen or so MCU entries, limping out of theaters to Disney Plus and being quickly forgotten, then just enjoy this stroll through Doom's history and keep your wallet in your pants. Alright, what's the number 1 Doctor Doom key? Say it with me. Fantastic Four number 5. It's not just the first appearance of Doctor Doom, it's not just the issue where the Fantastic Four kicked into high gear, I'd say it's the issue where Jack and Stan cracked the formula for the whole Marvel Universe. And as I've said many times, this book is scarce. With only 2,000 graded copies, it has a market cap of $18 million, higher than every other book on this list combined. For the one and only big ticket Doom key, look no further. But as I mentioned earlier, the value of this book really hasn't moved much since the announcement. 3 years ago, a 9.4 sold on Heritage for $162,000. Last month, a 9.2 sold for half that amount. And last week, an 8.5 sold for $40,000. The sales graph for FF5 looks pretty much the same as all other Silver Age keys, with a big spike from 2020 to 22, then a sharp drop and holding flat ever since. You can go on Comic Link right now and buy the highest graded copy at 9.6. The owner is asking $360,000 but accepting offers. To put that in perspective, a 9.6 of issue 1 sold last year on Heritage for over $2 million. My point, and I do have one, is that with all the focus on this character, and with all signs pointing to this book as the single defining key, the highest graded copy on the planet can't find a buyer at a pretty darn reasonable price. You can point to any number of explanations, but the bottom line is this book just hasn't taken off. Most of Doom's major appearances, especially in the early days, were in Fantastic Four. But the second book on this list is actually from a different series, Amazing Spider-Man number 5. The market cap on this book is over $5 million. And the reason for that really has nothing to do with Doctor Doom. It's simply that early Amazing Spider-Mans always go for a lot of money. It doesn't hurt that Spider-Man fights Doom in this one, but it was kind of a one-off, and the two characters have rarely had much to do with each other since that one very early encounter. The third book on this list is Fantastic Four number 6, the direct follow-up to Doom's first appearance in issue 5. This book isn't much of a key, aside from being the first time 2 villainous characters ever teamed up in a Marvel story, with Doom recruiting Namor to help him defeat the FF. The cover isn't very memorable and sort of has Doom off to the side. It has a market cap of over $2 million, but just like that ASM, its value has more to do with it being a low number in the series than it being a consequential story or great cover. The fourth book, however, is a totally different story. Doom had appeared over half a dozen times prior to Fantastic Four Annual 2, but it wasn't until this issue that we learned what his whole deal is. In his first appearance, Doom was little more than an arrogant weirdo with a castle who blew his face off. We learned he and Reed Richards were college classmates, and Doom scarred his face in an experiment gone wrong. But we never heard a word about him being the ruler of Latveria or even the existence of the fictional nation of Latveria until Annual 2. We also learned about his tragic childhood, the death of his mother, his father's sacrifice, and Doom's ascension to the Latverian throne. But that's just the A story. Next we get Doom drifting through space after his last battle with the FF and being rescued by none other than Ramatut, time-traveling despot from the future who we met in issue 19. The two compare origin stories, then quickly realize Ramatut is Doom's distant descendant. But then Doom is like, wait, you're a time traveler? What if I'm you and you're me? And Ramatut is like, stop, you're blowing my mind, how does that even work? And Doom is like, I don't know, this is getting weird, I have to go. P.S. It was later retconned that Ramatut wasn't actually Dr. Doom, and instead he was just Kang, which had to be a disappointment. But then that was retconned so that maybe Kang and Doom were the same guy, which would mean Ramatut is actually... You know what, it doesn't matter. Point is, Fantastic Four Annual 2 is a lot of fun, and kind of an underappreciated milestone in Dr. Doom becoming both the most badass and the most bonkers villain in Marvel Comics. Its market cap is just over $1 million, which, for all it establishes, seems low. While I've been a vocal critic of comic book movie speculation, I'm gonna go ahead and confess to having bought a few copies of this book because they're just so dang affordable for what they are. With a small population of 1,400 graded copies, you can scoop up a mid-grade 5.0 for just $350. There are surely many ungraded copies floating around as well. Moving on, the next book on this list is Fantastic Four issue 10, which was Doom's next appearance after issue 6, in which he swaps bodies with Reed Richards. The story isn't particularly thrilling, but there is one early scene in which Doom storms into the office of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, demanding they help him lure in the Fantastic Four. It's about as unserious as Stan and Jack ever got outside of their out-and-out self-satire books, and a good reminder that Dr. Doom is, at his core, totally ridiculous. The market cap on issue 10 is a little below $1 million, with a 5.0 going for the same $350 that Annual 2 sells at, and a lot of ungraded copies out there. It wouldn't take much to push this book into the number 4 spot, but it shouldn't be up there, as Annual 2 is a far better book. Issue 10 ends with Doom being shrunk down to microscopic size, and the next time we see him is in the next book on this list, issue 16. Doom becomes emperor of a whole microscopic civilization, and the FF shrink down to battle him with help from guest star Ant-Man. This issue is actually a fairly accurate roadmap for the MCU movie Ant-Man Quantumania. Swap Doom for Kang and it's basically the same story, which isn't much to brag about and didn't impact its value in the slightest. The position of this book on the list has little to do with the story and a lot to do with the low issue number and very large Dr. Doom face on the cover. The market cap for this book is just over $800,000. You may see a pattern here. For the most part, we are just running through Doom's earliest appearances in order, but there are a few books on this list that punch way above their weight, and next we have one of them, Marvel Superheroes issue 20. This is a series from the tail end of the Silver Age that featured one-off stories that either spawned new characters or boosted fan favorites. Doom was centered for the first time as the main character and made into somewhat of a flawed anti-hero in pursuit of his lost love, Valeria, who was kidnapped by another FF villain, Diablo. But the story really doesn't matter here at all. This book is a minor key because of the great Doom cover. It's far more attainable than the earlier Doom keys, so it's been spec'd heavily over the last year and a half, with a 9.8 selling on Heritage for over 10 times its previous recorded sale price. That sale alone shot this book up into the top 10 with a market cap of around $750,000. This was pretty much a forgotten book until the Robert Downey Jr. announcement sparked interest in the character. That interest is likely to be fleeting, as I don't think there's any genuine enthusiasm for this comic outside of spec buyers. The next book skips over a bunch of other Doom appearances and takes the number 8 spot on this list because it's another very good Doom-focused cover. I watched a 9.6 copy sell on Comic Link a few months ago for over $8,000, way higher than any recorded sale, even at 9.8. This is a book that is spiking in value with speculators because it's attainable at high grade, whereas there are very few copies of FF5 at high grade, and possibly even fewer collectors willing to spend the kind of money required to buy one. The market cap for this book is about $600,000, with a mid-grade copy priced at $140,000, but easy to scoop up raw for less at shows and local comic shops. The story has Doom stealing the Silver Surfer's board and something something power cosmic, who cares? It's got both of them on the cover and Doom's face is big. Number 9 on this list is Doom's first encounter with the Avengers. The spike in value on this one is pretty obvious. Dr. Doom is fighting the Avengers and the movie is called Avengers Doomsday. Will it have anything whatsoever to do with this comic? No. Is that going to stop speculators from driving up the price? No. Sale prices doubled at 9.4 after the movie news, putting the market cap at around $550,000. There haven't been any recent recorded sales at higher grade though. If there had been, it would likely jolt values at every grade and we'd see this book higher on the list. For what it's worth, the Avengers are lured to Latveria in this issue and fight Doom on his home turf, but that really doesn't matter. The cover says it all and makes this a desirable book to own for collectors looking to catch a ride on the Doom train. Rounding out the top 10, we have issue 39 of Fantastic Four, the first in a two-parter guest starring Daredevil. Once again, the story doesn't matter. It's really just a question of how prominent Doom is on the cover. And in this case, he's pretty prominent. I picked this mid-grade copy up recently because I'm a sucker and I can't walk out of a comic shop without buying something. I found these reasonably priced early Doom covers, so I figured, what the heck. I'll wipe them down with Immacuclean, give them a press, and send them in for grading. What's Immacuclean? What's Immacuclean, you say? Why, it's a proprietary non-ionic surfactant and emulsifying detergent used for cleaning dirt, stains, and fingerprints off your vintage comics without damaging the inks. But how does it clean dirt without affecting the inks? Immacuclean is able to do that because it has a narrow HLB, or hydrophilic lipophilic balance, targeted specifically to dissolve hand oils and nothing else, you moron. Wait a minute. If I use this, am I gonna get the purple label of death for chemically treating my books? No! Immacuclean evaporates entirely, leaving no chemical residue. You're removing unwanted material from your comics without actually adding anything, so it's just cleaning, not restoration. This all sounds really complicated. It is, but you don't actually need to understand any of it. I sure don't. These are just word noises coming out of my face hole. Okay, walk me through how to use it. Sure. First, you heat your comic up to 135 degrees in a heat press under low pressure. This makes the paper easier to clean. Next, add 3 to 5 pumps of Immacuclean to a cotton round. Then carefully coat the front and back covers, wiping away from the spine. Target any dirt you want to remove and watch it gradually lift off the page. The book looks all wet and wrinkly now. Don't worry, that's part of the process. Just let the book dry, then give it a press under standard heat and it'll come out looking fantastic. So head on over to Immaculate Comics to get your Immacuclean today. Use discount code GRELLWORTHY for 15% off. GRELLWORTHY with a hyphen. Does it have to be in all caps? And tell them that comic guy on YouTube who avoids giving away personal details sent ya. Moving further down the list, the 11th and 12th spots go to 2 more early Doom appearances in FF 17 and 23. Then in 13th place, we have a real outlier with Secret Wars number 10. Issue 8 has always been the key book from Secret Wars, but interest spiked on issue 10 after the movie announcement because this really is one of the all-time great Doom covers. It's also a story in which Doom gains the power of the Beyonder, which may be at least tangentially relevant to the story we see in Avengers Doomsday. With every other book on this list coming from the 60s, this issue is actually from the mid-80s, so it has a very different market profile. Prices drop to nothing below 9.6. A 5.0 copy is worth less than the paper bags you have to buy at grocery store checkouts. But there are loads of near-perfect copies out there and an apparent appetite among speculators, which briefly sent prices from the high 100s to the high 200s, and then back down to where they'd been as newly graded copies started flooding onto eBay. The market cap is around $300,000, with the potential to go much higher if collectors see dollar signs and start grading more of the never-ending supply of easy-to-find raw copies. I picked this one up at a local comic shop recently because I am a dum-dum and I thought it might be a 9.8. I was going to grade it, but with CGC raising prices once again, I'll probably just leave it in the short box. Next we've got FF60, not much to say about that one, then Uncanny XMen 145, in which Doom battles the Claremont X-Men. Of course, it's later retconned that this was a Doombot the whole time, but if there's one thing you can safely assume about Dr. Doom, it's that he's pretty much always a Doombot. The total market cap on this book is about $200,000, and we are really scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point. 4 more FF issues take up the next spots on the list with 86, 58, 40, and 84. I will say 84 and 86 are pretty great Kirby covers from shortly before he left Marvel, but they're too far into the run to ever hold much value. And then in 20th place we have Daredevil 38, a fantastic 1968 Gene Colan cover I just watched sell on Comic Link at 9.6 for $2,500. A 9.8 sold last year on Heritage for $7,200, so there's some interest in this book in top grade. I think it's actually one of the best covers we've looked at, but aside from that, it's hard to make a case for it as a significant Doom key. There are two other modern books that appear to be thematically tied to Avengers Doomsday and have seen some speculation as a result. Secret Wars number 5 from 2015 has been referenced a few times by Disney in the last few years. That storyline features Doom again gaining godlike powers, but this time using them to create a patchwork reality out of different branches of the multiverse. It's a safe bet we'll see something like that happening in Doomsday. The other modern spec book is Infamous Iron Man number 1 from 2016. This story sees Doom taking on the mantle of Iron Man from a comatose Tony Stark. There's some obvious symmetry there, with Robert Downey Jr. moving from the Iron Man role to Dr. Doom, but who knows if the connection extends beyond that. I kind of doubt it, and even if the storyline does get used, it probably won't do much for a book that's so recent, so abundant, and no one seemed particularly excited about before the movie announcement. So what on this list really matters? Well, Fantastic Four 5, obviously, is a great book and the one true Doom key. It hasn't proven to be a good investment, and I can't really explain why. We'll see if the trailer and eventual release of Avengers Doomsday changes anything. If there were a second, I'd say it's FF Annual 2. That's where the character got fleshed out. On the more affordable end, FF 57, Avengers 25, Marvel Superheroes 20, and Secret Wars 10 all seem to be the lesser Doom keys for collectors who want a piece of the character but don't have as much to spend. Alright, that takes care of the comic investment side of things. In the companion video, I'm going to watch the new trailer and do my best to pick it apart as a huge fan of both the comics and the MCU. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.